The morning of my 30th birthday began with unexpected chaos. My brother Jackson burst into my apartment demanding I pack my things immediately. The family home I had been paying rent for was suddenly needed for my cousin. No warning, no discussion, just eviction on what should have been a celebration. Little did they know, I had been quietly saving for years. Their betrayal launched me into a journey that would transform me from the family doormat to someone they would soon desperately need. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button. I am Fred, a graphic designer from Portland who always believed family came first. Growing up in our 3-bedroom colonial house on Maple Street, I learned early that family loyalty was the highest value. My father, Walter, a stern accountant with salt and pepper hair and perpetually furrowed brows, ran our household like a business. My older brother, Jackson, who inherited both my father's sharp features and authoritative personality, always positioned himself as the heir apparent to the family legacy. Our family dynamic was simple. Dad made the decisions, Jackson enforced them, and the rest of us complied. My mother, Claire, a soft-spoken kindergarten teacher with kind eyes, often served as a buffer between my father's harsh expectations and my sensitive nature. Though she never directly challenged my father, she would find small ways to comfort me after his criticisms. 5 years ago, when Mom was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, everything changed. Without hesitation, I moved back into my childhood bedroom to help care for her. Though I had been building my independent life in a small but promising apartment downtown, family needs came first. Mom recovered after 2 years of treatment, but by then, a new family arrangement had solidified. I was paying $800 monthly in rent to my father, supposedly to cover household expenses and medical bills. This was substantially more than what a room in a shared house would cost, but I convinced myself this was my contribution to family stability during a difficult time. I postponed my dreams of building my own design studio and purchasing my own place, believing my sacrifice was both noticed and appreciated. As my 30th birthday approached, I found myself feeling unexpectedly optimistic. My small graphic design business was growing steadily with several regular clients. I had planned a modest celebration at a local brewery with friends and a few family members. I even splurged on a cake from that fancy bakery downtown that Mom always loved. What nobody in my family knew was that despite the high rent and occasional family emergency loans that my father requested, I had been quietly saving for years. A childhood of watching my parents argue about money taught me to be frugal. Every freelance project payment went partially into a savings account that I never discussed. While my brother Jackson flaunted his leased luxury car and designer clothes, I drove my reliable 10-year-old Civic and shopped sales. My dream of homeownership seemed distant but possible if I continued my disciplined approach. My friend Aiden, a straight-talking contractor I met through a client project, often questioned my financial arrangement with my family. Over beers last month, he leaned across the table with concern in his eyes. "Fred, buddy, I cannot understand why you keep bankrolling your family while putting your own life on hold," he said, shaking his head. "You realize that most 30-year-olds are not still financially supporting their fully capable parents, right?" I defended my choices as I always did. They need me right now. Dad had those investment losses last year, and Jackson is trying to get his business off the ground. Family supports each other. Aiden raised his eyebrows skeptically. "Support goes both ways, man. When was the last time they supported you?" I changed the subject, uncomfortable with the question, because I could not readily produce an answer. Deep down, I treasured the rare moments when my father would nod approvingly at something I had done, or when Jackson would introduce me as his artistic brother without the usual condescending tone. Those small acknowledgments fed a lifelong hunger for family approval that I could not seem to satisfy. The evening before my birthday, I noticed an unusual tension at dinner. Dad checked his watch repeatedly, while Jackson seemed to be suppressing a smirk. Mom avoided eye contact altogether, focusing intently on her meatloaf. When I mentioned my birthday plans for the following evening, my father cleared his throat. "We will see if we can make it," he said dismissively. "Jackson has an important meeting with investors tomorrow." I nodded, swallowing my disappointment with a forkful of mashed potatoes. It was not the first birthday they would miss, and I told myself that at 30, I was too old to care about such things anyway. I went to bed that night blissfully unaware that it would be my last night in my childhood home for a very long time. The next morning, Jackson did not even knock before bursting into my bedroom at 7:30. I was still in bed, groggily checking birthday messages on my phone. "You need to pack your stuff today," he announced, leaning against my doorframe with his arms crossed. He was already dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and slacks, his typical uniform for impressing people. I sat up, certain I had misheard. "What are you talking about, Dad?" "And I decided that Natalie needs your room. She is moving in this weekend." Natalie was our cousin who had recently graduated from college. "We figured your birthday was a good deadline since you would remember it easily." The casual cruelty of the timing struck me silent for a moment. "You are kicking me out on my birthday." With no notice, Jackson shrugged, as if we were discussing something as trivial as a change in dinner plans. "We have been discussing this for a while. Natalie needs a place while she starts her internship at Dad's firm. It makes sense for her to be here." Discussing it with everyone but me. "Apparently," I said, my voice rising, "I pay rent, Jackson. There are laws about eviction notices." He laughed. "Come on, this is family, not some landlord-tenant situation. Besides, you are 30 now. It is about time you got your own place." As the initial shock wore off, questions flooded my mind. Where am I supposed to go today? I cannot just find an apartment instantly. "Figure it out," Jackson said with another shrug. "You are always going on about being a responsible adult. Time to prove it." I spent that surreal birthday morning packing my belongings into plastic bins and garbage bags while my family went about their day as if nothing unusual was happening. My mother occasionally passed by my door with a pained expression, but offered no help and no protest against the decision. My father left early for work with nothing more than a gruff, "Make sure you are out by 6. Natalie arrives at 7. Through a fog of disbelief, I called Aiden, who immediately offered his couch until I found a place. By 5 in the afternoon, I had crammed my essential belongings into my Civic, leaving furniture and childhood mementos behind. As I made my final trip to the car, I passed Jackson in the hallway. "Almost done?" he asked casually. "Why today?" I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. "Why my birthday?" He had the audacity to look annoyed at the question. "Stop being so sensitive. We are still doing dinner at 7, right? Mom made reservations at Antonio's." The absurdity of being expected to celebrate with the very people who had just made me homeless nearly made me laugh. Instead, I just nodded, too numb to argue. That evening, I sat through the most uncomfortable birthday dinner of my life. My family ordered champagne and presented a store-bought cake while making small talk as if I was not currently homeless. When my father casually asked about my new living arrangement, I realized with stunning clarity that they had no intention of acknowledging what they had done. "I am staying with Aiden temporarily," I answered flatly. "Wonderful," my father said with a dismissive wave. "Roommates are a smart financial decision." After dinner, while unloading my car at Aiden's apartment, a disturbing thought occurred to me. I called my mother under the pretense of thanking her for dinner. "Mom, how long have you known I would need to move out today?" Her hesitation told me everything. "Your father mentioned it a few months ago," she admitted quietly. "Months. And no one thought to tell me until the actual day. We did not want you to be upset during your busy season with those design projects," she offered weakly. I hung up shortly after a cold realization settling in my stomach. For months, they had continued to collect my rent while planning to evict me. As I lay awake on Aiden's lumpy couch that night, Surrounded by hastily packed bags, something hardened inside me. Living with Aiden revealed truths about my family I had been blind to. His one-bedroom apartment was cramped with my belongings stacked in corners, but he never complained or asked for money beyond splitting groceries. This simple kindness highlighted how rarely my family had extended the same consideration to me. 2 weeks after moving out, I met my mother for coffee. She slid an envelope across the table containing $300, a fraction of the rent I had paid in my final month at home. "Your father said this is your prorated refund," she explained. "Prorated," I repeated. "I paid $800 3 days before you kicked me out. I should get almost all of it back." My mother looked uncomfortable. "Your father said some of it went to preparing the room for Natalie, and well, some of it was already allocated to help with Jackson's business expenses." That casual admission was revelatory. My rent had never been about household expenses at all. I had been unknowingly funding my brother's business ventures while he drove a luxury car and lived rent-free in the same house. When I confronted my father about this by phone the next day, his response was dismissive. "What difference does it make where the money went? It is all family resources. Family resources that came from my paycheck, Dad," I countered. "Do not be selfish, Fred," he replied sharply. "Jackson's business will benefit everyone when it succeeds. Your contribution is just less direct." A few days later, I discovered that my family's financial exploitation extended beyond rent. My cousin Natalie called to thank me for leaving behind my desktop computer, which I had absolutely not intended to give up. When I explained there had been a misunderstanding, she became confused. "But Uncle Walter said, you upgraded and did not need it anymore," she said. I had been planning to retrieve my remaining belongings that weekend. Instead, I rushed over immediately to find that several valuable items from my room had already been redistributed among family members or simply disappeared. My father was unapologetic. "You left them behind. We assumed you did not want them," he said when I confronted him. The final straw came when I overheard Jackson and my father discussing me during an impromptu visit to collect my winter clothes. "Fred has always been the soft one," my father was saying in the kitchen, unaware I had entered the house. "Too emotional about everything. At least we do not have to listen to him complain about rent anymore," Jackson replied with a laugh. "And now we have his graphic design skills on tap whenever the business needs marketing materials. For free, no less," my father added. "He cannot say no to family." I backed away silently, my face burning with humiliation and anger. Later that week, I received a text from Jackson asking me to design a logo for his business venture when I had time. No mention of payment, of course. I did not respond. It was time to break the pattern. I contacted my maternal grandmother, who had always been kind to me, but maintained a strained relationship with my father. She was appalled by how I had been treated and offered both emotional support and a generous financial gift that, combined with my savings, might make homeownership possible sooner than I had imagined. "Your grandfather left that money for you children anyway," she explained. "I was saving it for when you really needed it. I think that time is now." 3 months after my abrupt eviction, I found myself standing in front of a neglected 1,922nd Craftsman house in a transitioning neighborhood. The blue paint was peeling, the porch sagged slightly, and the yard was overgrown, but the structure was sound according to the inspection. Most importantly, it was within my budget thanks to its condition. "Are you sure about this one?" the real estate agent asked skeptically. "It needs a lot of work." I nodded, seeing past the cosmetic issues to the beautiful bones of the house: original hardwood floors under worn carpet, built-in bookshelves, and large windows that flooded the rooms with light. This is the one. With my savings and my grandmother's gift, I made a competitive offer that was quickly accepted. The day I signed the closing papers was surreal, the weight of home ownership both terrifying and exhilarating. Aiden, who had become not just a roommate, but a true friend, offered to help with renovations. His experience as a contractor proved invaluable as we tore out damaged drywall, refinished floors, and updated the ancient kitchen piece by piece. "You have got a knack for this," he commented one evening as we installed new cabinet doors I had refinished. Who knew graphic design skills would translate to woodworking? I surprised myself with how quickly I took to renovation work. There was something deeply satisfying about the physical labor, so different from my days hunched over a computer. Each repair felt like healing, not just for the house, but for my own wounded pride. As the house transformed, so did I. The quiet, conflict-averse Fred, who avoided confrontation, was being replaced by someone more confident, more willing to stand up for himself. I expanded my design business, raising my rates and enforcing strict boundaries with clients who previously took advantage of my flexibility. For 2 months, my family showed minimal interest in my new home or life. My mother visited once, making polite comments about my progress, but clearly uncomfortable being there without my father's knowledge. Jackson texted occasionally, usually when he needed something, which I increasingly ignored. Then came the day that changed everything. My father and Jackson appeared unannounced on my porch one Sunday afternoon while I was painting the living room. Their unexpected presence felt like an invasion, their expensive shoes and pristine clothes out of place among my paint cans and drop cloths. "We thought we would stop by to see this house everyone is talking about," my father announced, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. His eyes scanned the space critically, but I could see a flicker of surprise as he took in the transformation already underway. "Grandmother mentioned you bought a place, but she failed to mention it had actual potential," Jackson added, running his hand along the newly refinished mantel. I offered a brief tour, increasingly uncomfortable with their assessing gazes, the way they discussed the house, as if I were not present. They estimated property values, discussed the neighborhood's appreciation potential, and speculated about what the place might be worth after renovations. "You got lucky with the timing," my father finally said, turning to me. "This area is appreciating quickly. You could be sitting on a significant asset soon." Something in his tone set off warning bells. I mumbled thanks and started cleaning my brushes, hoping they would take the hint and leave. Instead, my father cleared his throat meaningfully. "Your brother and I have been discussing your situation." He began using the same authoritative tone he had employed throughout my childhood. "We think it would be wise to put this property into a family trust." I paused, brush in hand. A family trust?" Jackson interjected smoothly, adopting his business voice. "It protects the asset and creates tax advantages. Since you were able to save for this house while living under our roof, it makes sense for the family to share in the investment." The audacity was breathtaking. "Share in what investment? You contributed nothing to this house." My father frowned. "We provided you affordable housing for years, allowing you to save. The family deserves some return on that investment." "Affordable housing," I repeated incredulously. "I was paying above market rate rent while you were planning to kick me out with no notice." "Business is business," Fred Jackson said dismissively. "The point is, this house could benefit everyone if properly managed." As they continued outlining their plan, the truth became crystal clear. They saw my home as a solution to financial problems they had never bothered to disclose to me. My father had tax issues related to his questionable accounting practices, and Jackson's business was hemorrhaging money despite his outward displays of success. "We already spoke with a lawyer," my father said, pulling papers from his jacket pocket. "Just a simple agreement, giving the family trust 30% ownership. We will handle all the management details." I stared at the document, a sick feeling spreading through my stomach. This was not an impulsive visit. It was a calculated move. They had consulted lawyers before even seeing the property. "What happens if I say no?" I asked quietly. My father's expression hardened. "Then we would need to examine the source of your down payment funds. If family resources were used, we might need to pursue legal clarification." It was a threat, plain and simple. They were implying they might claim I had used family money for my down payment, potentially clouding my ownership of the house. In that moment, something inside me finally broke free. Years of compliance, of seeking approval, of putting family obligation above self-respect, all fell away. I set down my paintbrush and straightened to my full height. "I think you should leave now," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Fred, do not be difficult," Jackson started, but I cut him off. "My house, my rules. The money was mine, earned through my work and saved, despite your constant demands. Not a penny came from family resources, and my grandmother's gift is well documented. So, unless you want me to start calculating how much back rent you owe me for the months you knew you were kicking me out, but kept collecting payments, I suggest you leave." Now, the shock on their faces might have been comical in another context. They had never heard me speak this way, had never encountered this version of Fred, who did not automatically bend to their will. "You cannot talk to us like that," my father sputtered. "We are your family. Family does not treat each other the way you have treated me," I replied. "Family does not exploit, manipulate, or threaten. You have done all three today alone." After they left documents unsigned and threats unsuccessful, I sat on my half-painted floor and shook with a mixture of adrenaline and relief. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to my father and brother and held my ground. The following week brought escalating attempts to pressure me. Extended family members called with concerns. Jackson spread rumors about my mental state. My father hinted to mutual acquaintances that I had financial problems. I weathered it all with a newfound resilience, documenting every interaction on the advice of a real estate attorney I consulted. "They have no legal claim," the attorney assured me after reviewing my documentation. "But people like this rarely give up easily. Document everything and maintain clear boundaries." I followed her advice, meticulously creating distance while gathering information. Through conversations with other family members, I discovered my situation was not unique. My father had a history of financial manipulation within the family, including pressuring my uncle to invest in failed business ventures and convincing my grandmother to change her will multiple times. Armed with this knowledge and legal protection, I developed a strategy. I would engage with my family only on my terms, offering relationship but no financial entanglements. I installed security cameras, kept meticulous records, and continued to transform my house into a home that reflected my personal taste rather than my family's expectations. The most surprising development came from my extended family. When my father attempted to recruit them to pressure me, many instead reached out privately to offer support. My Aunt Susan, who had maintained a polite distance from family gatherings for years, invited me to dinner and shared her own experience with my father's financial manipulation. Cousins I had barely spoken to sent encouraging messages. Even my mother, in her cautious way, began visiting more regularly without informing my father. The final confrontation came when I hosted a small housewarming party 3 months after the initial showdown. I had invited extended family, but not my father or Jackson. Somehow they appeared anyway, clearly expecting to intimidate me in front of others. Instead, they walked into a house transformed not only physically, but socially. My once isolated existence had blossomed into genuine connections with family members who had also felt marginalized by my father's controlling nature. When Jackson attempted to bring up the family trust idea again, my Aunt Susan immediately shut him down. "Enough, Jackson," she said firmly. "Fred bought this house himself. We all know what you and your father are trying to do, and none of us support it." The unified front shocked them into retreat. For once my father had no clever argument, no manipulation that would work. They left early, and the party continued with a celebratory tone that felt like true freedom. 1 year after being kicked out on my 30th birthday, I celebrated my 31st in my completely renovated home, surrounded by friends and family members who respected my boundaries and valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. The year had brought profound changes. My design business had expanded to include home staging services inspired by my renovation experience. I had discovered artistic talents I never knew I possessed, creating custom woodwork and furniture pieces that now filled my home. Most importantly, I had rebuilt my sense of self-worth, separate from my family's approval. My relationship with my mother improved as she began to establish her own independence, taking art classes and spending more time with her sisters. Though she remained married to my father, she created space for her own identity and made effort to connect with me on her own terms. The relationship with my father and Jackson remained complicated. After their initial aggressive tactics failed, they attempted a different approach, feigning regret without actual apology. I maintained polite but distant contact, engaging only in public settings with clear boundaries. When they realized they could not regain control, they grudgingly adjusted to the new dynamic, occasionally showing glimpses of genuine respect for the person I had become. My grandmother became a central figure in my life, visiting often and delighting in the home renovations. "Your grandfather would have been so proud," she told me one afternoon, as we sat on the fully restored front porch. "Not just of the house, but of how you have stood up for yourself." Other family relationships evolved in surprising ways. Natalie, the cousin, who had unwittingly displaced me, eventually apologized after understanding the full situation. We developed a friendly relationship based on shared interests rather than obligation. Several cousins became regular visitors, and Sunday dinners at my house became a new tradition for the extended family members who preferred a less controlled environment than my father provided. Aidan remained my closest friend, his straightforward honesty a constant reminder of what healthy relationships should feel like. "You know what the best renovation was?" he asked me on my birthday. "Not the kitchen or the bathrooms. It was you, man. You completely rebuilt yourself." The most valuable lessons from this difficult year were not about property ownership or financial independence, though those were important. What I learned went deeper. True family is defined by mutual respect and support, not DNA or obligation. Boundaries are not selfish, but necessary for healthy relationships. The approval I had sought from my father and brother could never fill the void created by their conditional love. Sometimes losing what you thought you needed creates space for what you truly deserve. And perhaps most importantly, standing up for yourself does not mean standing alone. When I finally established boundaries, I discovered more genuine connections than I had ever experienced while trying to please everyone. As I blew out the candles on my birthday cake that evening, surrounded by people who genuinely celebrated my existence, I realized the greatest gift my family ever gave me was the crisis that forced me to discover my own strength. The house they had tried to claim had become not just my home, but the foundation for a life built on self-respect and authentic connection. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed your boundaries? What helped you find the strength to do it? Share your experiences in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the family we choose can be more supportive than the one we are born into. Your story of standing up for yourself might be just beginning.